news line coming out of the 49ers preseason is the Brandon Ayuk trade rumors. Now, the 49ers are rumored to be interested in bringing in another receiver in his place to sort of help out with the wide receiver room because they'd be thin at wide receiver. But let's go into a scenario where they don't do that. Who would be the winner in the 49ers current wide receiver room if Ayuk got traded tomorrow and the Niners didn't go out and pursue another starting wide receiver?
I've had a number of people ask me that question in the last 72 hours when all the trade rumors got heated up between Pittsburgh and New England and Cleveland and still Washington hanging in there. Everybody's wanting it. It's not that everybody was wanting to know. They were telling me, oh boy, I want to get Ricky Pearsall now. I love Ricky Pearsall, but instantly for 2024, the winner of Ayuk leaving and no real wide receiver coming back is going to be Jauan Jennings. I think one of the reasons why the 49ers are comfortable making this move for Ayuk to some degree is they are really positive on Jauan Jennings as a frontline starter. He's been a starter with them, but kind of the forgotten starter, the number 3 wide receiver that just gets lost in the shuffle, and every so often he'd catch a touchdown pass. But it wasn't until the Super Bowl that he had that kind of breakout moment. I would almost bet, from talking to sources and just watching the situation, they're into Jauan Jennings way more than the public is because he's not a rookie and he hasn't had, the Super Bowl moment helped get him on the map a little bit, but people mostly look past him as lucky in the Super Bowl or he's a nobody. Let's go they drafted Ricky Pearsall for a reason. And there is logic to the Pearsall thing, and Pearsall will be the future. But I think Jauan Jennings is way more distinguished in San Francisco than anybody's given him credit for in Dynasty fantasy community. So if this works out to where it's not Pickens coming back over or Amari Cooper or even the Kendrick Bourne deal with the Patriots, that he was going to be a part of it. If a wide receiver doesn't come back, if they end up having to take another position, a pick and another position, which is where Pittsburgh is wanting to take it, where it could be offensive. I'm just throwing names out that I've heard that James Daniel, a guard, could be in that deal with a pick. San Francisco certainly interested in Pickens, but they're not trading Pickens and they're not trading him Roman Wilson because NFL teams are worse than fantasy GMs about clinging on to rookies. So they're not going to trade Roman Wilson. They're not going to. They don't want to trade Roman Wilson. They don't want to trade George Pickens. They will trade James Daniel, an offensive guard who's going to be a backup, who was a starter, is now going to be a backup potentially for them. So. And I think he's got some talent, so I think San Francisco would be interested in him. So it'd be a pick plus Daniels. That leaves a void at wide receiver. Could be a pick plus Darnell Washington, who the Pittsburgh also doesn't want to give up, going in the deal, which then leaves the same void at wide receiver. So if it ends up being that type of deal, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be with Pittsburgh, if they have a void at wide receiver, I'm sure they will be kicking the tires on wide receivers to trade for. But in the immediate term, if it's going to be a choice between Pearsall and Jauan Jennings for 2024, especially right off the bat, you want Jauan Jennings. He will be, if this goes down, later in this month, the trade goes down, there's no other wide receiver they trade for and all that. Jauan Jennings is going to be the number 2 wide receiver for San Francisco. It's not going to be Pearsall. Pearsall has missed so much time with little nagging injuries, and then when he got back, he wasn't even really working with the first team. He wasn't even ready. They were still trying to teach him the playbook. They weren't putting him against top corners because they were just trying to let him get a feel for things. And then he got hurt again, so he's out of practice again. He is not ready. Even if they wanted him to be the answer, he's not ready. And San Francisco obviously is a Super Bowl contender. They can't be having an inexperienced rookie wide receiver that they're depending on. But all that to say, I think they consider Jauan Jennings a lot higher up on the scale than the rest of us do. So for fantasy purposes, Jauan Jennings might get the win here if no wide receiver comes back for Ayuk. And Jennings, depending on your level of rosters, is probably not, he's probably available in normal sized 12-team dynasties or a redraft. So you could preemptively get them if you're so inclined. And then if it works out, they get George Pickens or whatever happens, you can always, it ain't going to cost you much to get them now and sit on it and see how it goes. But I'd be more into Jennings than I would be Pearsall at this point.
RC, just Pearsall versus Jennings for 2024. You're implying Jennings, but let's talk about the other top receiving options there too, because you have Deebo Samuel there and obviously George Kittle at tight end. I'm sure your projections go up for both if Ayuk's gone and no one comes back. It's just an uptick in targets. It's simple math. But how far do we go? Like, how far up does Kittle move? And does Deebo all of a sudden move up to an early second round pick in redraft leagues?
Could be that high with Deebo. We have him as a top 10 wide receiver already. And that's also hedging in that Ayuk's probably going to go. So this is all a boom for Deebo Samuel, who can get you through the air and get you through the ground. But he's not Brandon Ayuk. Deebo's a whole different cat, a whole different style. So somebody's got to come in and do the Ayuk role. So whoever that is, they're not going to warrant as many looks as Ayuk. Purdy's going to be more familiar with Kittle and Deebo and all that, so it will raise the stock of Deebo. It will raise the stock of Kittle a little bit, and it'll obviously raise the stock of Jauan Jennings quite a bit.
Yeah, but Jauan Jennings, though, to your point, he's that low-cost option. Again, he's probably available in most dynasty formats. He's going to be available at the back end of redraft leagues. But the moment Ayuk gets traded, he's probably going to start. His ADP is going to start climbing, especially with the Pearsall injuries.
If no wide receiver comes over, but I don't know how much it'll go up because everybody will probably think Pearsall is the answer. But for 2024, especially right off the bat, it's not going to be. And I foresee. I was telling this to somebody the other day. If San Francisco makes this trade and there's no wide receiver coming back, they are going to talk about the trade, how excited about the pick and the player coming over, the non-wide receiver coming over. Then the very next thing, and the thing they'll talk about the most, is how great Jauan Jennings is. And they'll say they have hope with Ricky Pearsall, but the key to this is going to be, they'll say this is why we got Ricky Pearsall. But the key to quelling the fans' revolt over no Ayuk and then no wide receiver coming back in and them getting panicked that, oh my goodness, we're down to Jauan Jennings or we're down to Chris Conley, is they're going to have to come out and talk about Jauan Jennings like he's the greatest wide receiver known to mankind, somewhat unfairly, just to quell the fans and the analysts getting worried about Ayuk. And when Kyle Shanahan does that, that's going to take Jauan Jennings' value up, maybe to the point where if you got him ahead of that for near nothing, you trade him. You trade him into that heat if the heat really gets boiling hot.